Hello my friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Tiffany and in today's video we are doing a fun fall recipe, basically soup marathon. I am sharing with you all of my favorite warm and cozy recipes that I have shared in Cook With Me videos over the last couple of years. I find cooking during this time of year to be the most rewarding. It is so fun to just get into the kitchen and put together a delicious, warm, and cozy meal. It's my favorite way to show my family that I love them, and it's the perfect time to have an excuse to eat something delicious and warm and cozy. So this video is going to be a compilation of some of my favorite Cook With Me videos over the years, and I hope that you enjoy it. I would love to hear if you have tried any of these recipes, plan to try any of them, and if you have any that you think that I need to try, please share them down in the comments below. I'm sure that other viewers would love to hear those as well. So I hope that you guys are having a wonderful start to the Burr months, and let's go ahead and get into some cooking. Thank you so much for being here. Hello my friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Tiffany and in today's Cook With Me video, we are making one of my absolute favorites, sausage tortellini soup. I know that it's April, maybe May by the time you see this video, but it is spring. The weather for us is so up and down. It's been gorgeous, 70 degrees. And then nights like tonight, it's chilly. It's in the high 40s. It's gonna dip down into the high 30s. There are black storm clouds, and I am just feeling like a delicious bowl of soup. And so we're gonna make sausage tortellini soup. Probably one of the easiest recipes that you will ever make. If you haven't had it, you will want to put this in your rotation. Everybody in my house loves it. Let's go ahead and get started. Thanks for being here. Okay, let's talk ingredients. So here are all of the ingredients that you're going to need for this recipe. First and foremost, you're going to need frozen cheese tortellini. Make sure that you get the frozen kind and make sure that they're the big ones. You're also going to need some mild Italian ground sausage. You could do spicy. That would be perfectly fine as well. You're going to need a pound of that. You're also going to need the equivalent of 3 garlic cloves. So I use this already ready minced. It just makes life a lot easier. I believe you need a tablespoon or 2 of flour, and you're also going to need kale. So for the recipe, I think it calls for around 1 cup. I end up putting in more because I love it, but you can also substitute this for spinach. That would also be fine. You're also going to need heavy whipping cream for this recipe and 5 cups of chicken broth. So I've got 2 32-ounce boxes here. I think one of these is 4 cups, so you'll need 1 and then some. You'll also need 1 small onion, salt, and pepper. You're also going to need hot sauce. This is completely up to you. I use Frank's for this recipe. It does have a little bit of a bite, not much, but it really does add to the flavor, so don't skimp on that. I promise it does not make it spicy. And these are the seasonings that you're going to need: chili flakes, mustard, basil, cayenne pepper, and oregano. You could omit the chili flakes and the cayenne pepper, and that would be fine. If you feel like this is too much spice between the hot sauce, the chili flakes, and the cayenne pepper, just go with the cayenne pepper. That gives it a little bit of a bite, but it doesn't give too much spice. But I promise that really does add to the depth of the flavor in this soup. So this is everything we're gonna need, and it is a really simple and quick recipe that you can have on your table in about a half an hour. The recipe that I'm following tonight is from The Cozy Cook, and I mentioned in my last Cook With Me that I print all of my recipes just to make things easier for me when I'm cooking, so I'm not constantly looking at my phone or trying to keep it, pulled up. But what you could do if you don't want to print everything is write it on a recipe card, or you could try the recipe first if you like it and then you can print it. But I just find that having things printed makes life so much easier. For this recipe, the first thing we're gonna do is cook our sausage and our diced onion. So we're gonna go ahead and just let our pot here come up to temperature. I added probably about tablespoon and a half of avocado oil to my pot. That just will keep everything from sticking. We're gonna go ahead and open up our sausage and get that in. Again, I'm just using mild. You could use hot. And I'm gonna use this little meat, I don't even know what you would call this. It just helps to separate your ground meat. So any kind of ground sausage or beef, whatever, you're gonna just go ahead and do this. And as it cooks, you can keep doing this. So right now it's gonna, you know, kind of come together. It's not gonna be as easy to break up, but as it cooks, it will be easier to separate. So just keep that nearby because we're gonna keep using that. You're gonna cook this at medium high. And then we're gonna go ahead and dice up one small onion. So once your sausage isn't pink anymore and your onions are looking nice and translucent like that, for the most part, that means they're cooked and they're ready for the next step. So we're gonna start to season up our soup. We're gonna start by adding in garlic. Now, the recipe says 3-ish cloves. The recipe says 3 cloves. I always add 3-ish. I always say ish when I do this because I like garlic, and if a little more goes in, it's never the end of the world. So go ahead and put that in. You're only gonna let that cook for about 30 seconds or so by itself because you don't want your garlic to burn. And then we're gonna add our flour. Now this is gonna act as our thickening agent. And I love a thick soup. I think there's a time and a place for a nice brothy soup, like a really great homemade chicken noodle, especially when you're not feeling well. But for the most part, I will always choose a creamier soup. So for today, we're doing a creamy soup. So you're gonna add in 3-ish tablespoons of flour. I'm saying ish because I really wasn't like making sure they were all perfect. And now you're going to let that cook for a minute or so. You want to cook out as much of that starchy flavor as you can. Flour is raw, and if you don't cook it, it can really make your food taste very starchy. So it's just gonna coat your sausage, garlic, and onion at this point. And then you're just gonna kind of let that cook a second. Then we'll come stir it up. You don't want it to burn, but you don't want it to be super starchy either. You're gonna have to stir this somewhat regularly because it will burn. I'm gonna go ahead and turn my stove down a little here, but kind of looks like the start of gravy. Now we're gonna go ahead and add our seasonings. So it calls for a teaspoon of dried basil. And we're adding these now versus when the all the liquids are in, because this is going to give us a really good taste, a good depth of taste, and it's going to allow for those seasonings to cook. Calls for a half a teaspoon or so of mustard, ground mustard. Calls for about 1/4 of a teaspoon of pepper. Always use fresh ground if you can. Just feel like that really is just a little bit better, a little bit of an elevated flavor. Whoop. I don't know where we're going. Let's really turn this down. It's getting a little hot. We're sticking to the bottom, but don't worry. We'll take care of that with our other stuff. Okay, so pinch of red pepper flakes. We'll just put a little bit of those in. Also calls for a pinch of cayenne. So we'll just put a little bit of that. And it also calls for half a teaspoon of oregano. I love oregano so much. All right, we're just gonna stir that in. And this smells amazing. I can smell that cayenne. So delicious. We also need to add in our hot sauce. Calls for about a teaspoon. So you do what works for you. And then it's gonna be time to add our chicken broth. Oh, that smells so good. So as I mentioned, one of these boxes is 4 cups. So we're gonna start with that. You wanna kinda add it in and then stir it. We don't want everything to get clumpy, so you're gonna add a little bit in, stir it in, let it absorb some of that flour so it doesn't clump up. Go ahead and add in a little bit more. We're probably at like 3/4 of the container. I can already feel the stuff on the bottom of the pan loosening. And then we're gonna add in the rest of this box. And we need 1 more cup or so. This one I'm gonna measure just because we're going to cook our pasta in this as well. So I'm gonna add a little bit more broth than you might typically need, but then you're going to cook your pasta in here. So once you have that added, it's gonna look like this and your house is going to smell delicious. Go ahead and pump up the heat. I just bumped mine up to almost high, and we're gonna let this come to a bubbly, low boil, gentle boil. I'm just kind of scraping the bottom with my rubber spatula. My all-clad here is stainless steel, so I don't want to use anything that's going to scratch it, but just kind of scraping along the bottom to make sure I get all of that flour up. Make sure your sides are clean so you're not burning any of your onions to it. And then we're just going to let that sit for a couple of minutes until it comes to a boil. You can pop a lid on if that will make it go a little bit faster. And now we wait. So one little change that I make to the recipe is I wait to add my cup of heavy cream. So it calls for adding this when right before you bring it to a boil, but I don't like to do that. So what I do is I save this until it's bubbling a little bit, but not all the way boiled, and add it then, stir it in, and then we'll take the lid off and let it finish coming to a boil. So we're probably right at that spot, yep. Just starting to come to a very gentle boil. Go ahead and turn it down just a tad. Slowly pour that in. And, oh, this is seriously my favorite. It's probably this, then clam chowder, which I also have on my channel. So we're gonna go ahead and let that come to another little bit of a boil. I had dropped it down. This is gonna come up to a little bit of a boil, and then we're gonna let it kind of simmer so that it'll thicken up a little bit just for a few minutes, and then that's just gonna help to make everything come together with that flour, and it'll thicken up, and then it'll be time to add in our pasta and our kale at the very last minute, and then we're done, you guys. Another easy bonus about this recipe is I've already cleaned up. So I've put all of the seasonings away, the flour away. I've loaded the dishwasher with the few little items that I used. And once I add that tortellini and the kale, that's it, you guys. There's no more to clean up. So except for the bowls when you're done. Super, super simple. The other thing I wanted to mention is that you could eat this soup with some crusty bread. That would be absolutely delicious. I don't have any crusty bread tonight. Wish I would have thought that through, but I don't have any. And you could also make a little side salad, which I do have, but I'm not super hungry tonight, so I'm just gonna have soup. But if you need to fill your family, if you're concerned that, you know, a bowl of soup isn't gonna do it, then you can definitely add some things to the side. I will assure you though, this is a very hearty soup. It's going to fill you, so don't feel like you need a ton of extra food. Okay, it's time to finish off our soup with our tortellini and our kale. So I'm gonna go ahead and open mine. It calls for 2 cups of tortellini. So you can kind of eyeball it, but I'm going to just kind of measure it out for today's video. Go ahead and add in your 2 cups. This bag is, let's see, 19 ounces. So 8 ounces is a cup. So 16 of that if you wanted to go by weight. I don't like too much pasta in my soup. I do like a good pasta to broth ratio. So I think that's enough. I'm gonna go ahead and just turn that up a little bit since that cold pasta just kind of dropped our soup really quickly. And we want that to bubble. So I'm gonna just turn that up a little bit. And then we're also going to add in, calls for about a cup. So I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it here. That's way more than a cup, but that is how I like it. Salad in like a little soup with my kale salad. So go ahead and stir that in. Kale is a very hearty leafy green, so this is not going to wither in your soup, which I love. It's gonna have a little bit of a bite. I did see a big stem in there, and I wanna go ahead and take that one out. You don't want really stemmy ones like that because those aren't as delicious. But that's done. We're gonna go ahead and let that come back to a boil and let that simmer for about 3 to 5 minutes. Really doesn't need much. And this is gonna be ready to devour. The last thing you wanna do before you serve it is give it a taste and check your salt levels. So I don't salt it until the very end when I've had a chance to give it a taste. You're probably gonna need some for sure. That is so dreamy. Doesn't need much. I'm gonna say 2 pinches and we're good. And we're gonna put a little bit of Parmesan cheese on top. So you don't wanna make it too salty. We're gonna go ahead and ladle up some soup. Wow. I am so excited to eat. I love this soup. I'm gonna get a little bit more greenery. So dreamy. To finish us off, go ahead and top it with a little bit of grated Parmesan. So delicious. Okay, my soup is done. I feel like I just used this bowl for my last cook with me. Look at that steam. Can you see it? This is my favorite bowl. It's from Hobby Lobby. I love the handle. It just feels extra cozy in this bowl, but you guys, oh my gosh. It is so dreamily creamy. Look at this. Can you see all that steam? Oh man, I might put a little extra hot sauce in mine. Blow on it. Even though my mouth is watering, I gotta blow on it because it's hot. It is dreamy. Oh man, that is perfection. Wow. Wow. It is so creamy, but it's not thick. Like, that's the best part about it, is it's not thick like a chowder. It's definitely thinner, you know, like a soup, but it's so dreamily creamy. I can't even tell you. The kale is delicious. It's not bitter at all. It's got just the right amount of texture to it. I like a little bite in my soup. The pasta is cooked perfectly. It's not mushy. It's perfection. It's got just enough heat that it warms your mouth, but it's not spicy. You guys, make this. Doesn't matter what time of year it is, make it. It is a cloudy, rainy day here, so I am very much looking forward to going and cuddling up on my sofa. Everybody is gone. My daughter is at dinner with her friends. My son is hanging out with his aunt, and my other son is at the aquarium with his friend, and my other two boys are at soccer practice with daddy. So I'm home by myself for about another 20 minutes. Enough time for me to sit down, enjoy my hot cup of soup, and maybe watch an episode or two of Gilmore Girls. So thank you guys so much for joining me in today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I am finding a renewed passion for these Cook With Me's. I enjoy them, and I like to share super simple recipes, and this is one of them, you guys. So dang good. Probably gonna have 2 bowls. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you aren't subscribed, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy eating. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another Foodie Friday Cook With Me video. In today's video, we're gonna be making a cozy, warm, delicious, yummy, fall weeknight meal. Now, I don't know about you, but when the weather starts to cool off, that means it's time to make delicious soups and just warm you from the inside out kind of meals. And one of the things that I love during the fall season is soup. 100% soup is always a go-to for me. So tonight we're gonna be making a delicious, creamy, thick and creamy clam chowder. Now, if you're not really a clam chowder person, you can definitely do a different type of chowder. You could do a potato, just a potato chowder, or even a corn chowder. There are delicious recipes out there, but I highly recommend that you give this recipe a try. It is not fishy at all. It is absolutely delicious and so very comforting. We're also gonna be making a cheddar biscuit on the side, because what is soup without a delicious bready something on the side? And we're also gonna be making a warm and gooey dump cake for dessert. So if you are here for it, let's get started. So dump cakes are a perfect weeknight or busy, cozy night where you're just looking to get things done really, really easy. A dump cake is the way to go, because literally all you're going to do is dump all of your goodies into your pan. So today we're gonna be using a 9x13 baking dish, and we are going to be making a cherry pineapple dump cake. Now that is the dump cake I first had probably 13 years ago or so. I was at a play date for my kiddos. I just had my daughter, and my son was a baby, my oldest son, and a friend of mine had made a dump cake, and It was delicious, and when she told me how easy it was, I instantly added it to our regimen. So we're just gonna go ahead and get that started and pop that into our oven so that while the rest of our things are going, our oven's ready. So while that's going, we can get the rest of our things ready. So let's get started. All right, my friends, today's dump cake is going to be a cherry pineapple dump cake. So you're going to need a can of cherry pie filling, a can of crushed pineapple, a box of yellow cake mix, as well as a stick and a half of butter. And you're going to start with a 9x13 pan. Now, if you go any smaller than this, you want to make sure you bake it a little bit longer. But this keeps it nice and thin, and it allows it to bake appropriately and not, take forever. So go ahead and open up your cans. We're going to start by layering the crushed pineapple all along the bottom of our greased 9x13 dish. I wish I had a prettier one, but I've just got this old school Pyrex that's going to work. I was like, now I know what I'm looking for next time I'm at Home Goods. It's a nice, pretty 9x13. I don't own one. I have lots of casserole pans, but not a 9x13. So I'm just going to make a thin layer of the crushed pineapple, and then we're going to use the cherry pie filling. Now, it's important that you're using cherry pie filling and not just canned cherries. This makes a huge difference. You can use sugar-free if you wanted to. It does change the taste a little bit, but it does cut back on the sugar in this meal, or in this dish. So you could do that if you wanted to. If you don't want to do that, make sure you're paying close attention, because I've accidentally got a sugar-free multiple times. Go ahead and just kind of spread out the cherry across the top. You can mix this together if you want, but I just kind of layer them together here. You could stir them in and mix them up. There's no rhyme or reason to how you want to do it. And then next you're going to open up your box of yellow food cakes. Yellow food cake? Yellow cake mix. Wow. You're going to open just the corner of the bag, and that allows you to have control as you're pouring the cake mix onto the rest of your fruit. So open up the corner and then evenly spread out this mix across the top of all of the fruit. And you're going to use the entire bag. So just make sure you spread that out evenly. As I get to the end here, I just kind of plop it in and then spread it out. But I did at the beginning try to, get it evenly spread across the top. And doing it this way makes it easier, because once you get it on there, it's very hard to spread it across the fruit, when you're first putting it on there. So just be really careful, try to get it nice and even. And then you're going to cut your butter. I had to think about what the heck that was. That's butter. You're going to use a stick and a half, approximately. You can use more or less if you want to, but you're just going to put squares, tablespoon squares of butter all across the top. I think I ended up with 15 tablespoons total. Each one of those squares is a tablespoon, but like I said, if you want a little less or a little more, it's important that you put enough that the butter will melt and cover all of that cake mix. That's what allows it to get, nice and chewy and browned and crusty. So make sure you put enough on there. Go ahead and lay them across the top in a nice even pattern like I have here. And then you're going to pop it into your oven, and you're going to bake it, I believe it was at 350 for 45 minutes. I checked it at 40 and it was done at about 45. Okay, so our dump cake is in the oven. It's got about 40 to 45 minutes to cook. And while that's cooking, we're gonna go ahead and get started with our soup. And to start off, we're gonna get our bacon cooked. So the bacon is just to kind of put along the top and give it some good flavor. So we're gonna cook that so we can put that to the side, and then we'll get into the other parts of the soup. To get us started with our soup today, we're actually going to prep all of our ingredients so that way it's easier, just because things can tend to cook pretty quickly with this meal. The one thing I will say is that I definitely typically will double this recipe. However, not everybody was going to be home this night to eat it. But if you have a larger family like mine, absolutely double this recipe, or if you want to have leftovers, because it is so dang good. You're going to start by chopping about 3 strips of bacon into, bite-sized pieces. You're going to be cooking this and using it to both season up your soup as well as a topping. So you're going to put that to the side, and notice there I used a plastic cutting board so that way I didn't get bacon grease all over my wood cutting board. Next up, we're going to use some celery. So for this recipe, you need 3 celery ribs. And what I did was I just purchased these celery sticks that were like ready prepared for snacks, because I figured we could eat them as snacks, nice and easy, toss them in backpacks for snack or lunch. And I used 4 just because I wanted to make sure I had enough. And when you buy celery, raw, a lot of times it's much bigger than that. So I used all 4, but you need a total of 3 celery ribs. Next up, you're going to need 1 medium onion. I am just using a yellow onion here, and I am going to dice this up. It says chopped, but you can cut it however you like. Like I said before in some of my videos, my family doesn't like to have big chunks of onions and things, and so I like to keep my onion nice and small. So we're just dicing that up, and I'm grabbing my scraper tool here. If you guys don't have one of these, I would highly recommend this tool. You can find them at TJ Maxx and Home Goods, but they're really great to just help you pull up, anything it is that you're chopping, just like I did there. It's really, really helpful. And then once you get all of your onion chopped up, you can just add that into your celery that you already have going. And that will be going into our pot to sweat and get absolutely delicious. It'll all go in together. So you can just put those in the bowl there together. You'll also notice I have a 3rd bowl there. That is for my garbage bowl. You're also going to need to add in some garlic cloves, some minced garlic cloves. The recipe calls for 5 garlic cloves, so you can, press your garlic or mince it up yourself. I just use the ready minced in my fridge, and I put in a lot, probably a little more than 5 teaspoons or 5 garlic cloves. Then it calls for a little bit of thyme. You need about a half a teaspoon. I just kind of eyeballed it with my finger and put that in there. And then the next step, I'm getting my liquids ready. So you're going to need about 3 cups of chicken stock and a cup of half and half. And now it's time to open up our chopped clams. So you're going to need 2 small cans of chopped clams, and you're going to keep the clam juice that's inside of the can. So don't dump those out, just open those up and have those ready to go. And you're going to keep that juice in there. So you'll have the chicken stock, the half and half, as well as the juice from your clams. You're also going to have an 8-ounce thing of clam juice. So you'll see that here in just a little bit. Finally, we're going to peel some potatoes. You'll need 2 medium potatoes for this recipe, and you'll want to give those a good peel. I'm just peeling them into my garbage bowl, and then we're going to chop them up into bite-sized pieces. I leave these pieces a little bit bigger because we really like to be able to have things to chew when we're having soup, so leaving them a little bit bigger gives your soup more of a stew feeling. If you're not into that, you can cut them much smaller than I do, but I really enjoy having these bigger pieces of potato in our clam chowder. And this is the last thing we're going to do to get ready before we head over to the stove and get to cooking. A key sign in my house that the weather is starting to cool off is that I have busted out this beautiful Dutch oven. I have had this forever, and I love to cook all of my fall soups and stews in this. It's the perfect tool for that. So we're going to get started by browning up our bacon. So remember, you chopped up 3 pieces of bacon, slices of bacon, and we're just gonna cook that up in a little tiny bit of oil just so it doesn't stick. And while that's cooking, I'm going to bring over all of those other ingredients that I have prepped. Like I said, I don't always cook like this, but for meals like this that have a lot of ingredients, I just find this is a lot easier to bring the ingredients over. They're already ready to go. And as things are cooking, I can just add them to the pot, nice and simple. So we're going to bring over all of our items, including our little bottle of clam juice. You'll need 8 ounces of clam juice, and you'll be good to go. So once your bacon is done cooking, which here you'll see mine is almost done, you're going to remove your bacon and put it onto a plate that has some paper towel. This will allow it to drain, but you're going to leave the rest of the drippings in your pan or pot. This is going to be what we cook our other vegetables in, and it's just going to add in another depth of flavor. Don't skip this part. It is absolutely delicious. Even if you choose not to put the bacon on top, just having that little bit of flavor in there is so good. Obviously, it is entirely skippable. You can 100% skip this part and just use some olive oil to cook your vegetables, but I really feel like it does add to the depth of the flavor. So now that everything is out of the pan, we're going to also add in 2 tablespoons of butter, and then we're going to saute our vegetables. So we're adding in our onion, celery, our garlic, and the thyme. And this is going to saute in your pan for a couple of minutes just to get it nice and soft. Probably about 5 minutes or so. You'll know they're ready to go when it gets very, very fragrant in your home. That's always a sign things are almost done. So speaking of fragrant, the dump cake was smelling super delicious, so I thought I would give it a little peek, and it was bubbly and so yummy looking, but it wasn't yet ready to come out. So we're going to come back over to our pot here, and you'll see our vegetables are ready to go, and we're going to add in the next item. So next up is a little bit of flour. You need about 1/4 cup of flour, and you're going to stir that in with your vegetables. Now, the recipe that I am providing does call to do it a little bit differently, but anytime I've ever made a roux, I always make sure that I cook the flour a little bit to get rid of that starchy taste. So just mix that in with your vegetables and your butter, let that cook for a couple of minutes, and then you're going to add in your 8 ounces of clam juice. You can find this in the grocery store right next to where you'll find your clams and the canned tuna. Let that start to simmer up and give it a really good stir with a whisk. This will get nice and thick, and this is the base to your really creamy clam chowder. So let that get nice and bubbly. Let it cook for a couple of minutes to just cook off that taste. You don't want it to be too floury or starchy when you're eating it. And then we're going to start adding in the rest of our items. So next up, we're going to add in our chicken stock. We've got 3 cups of chicken stock, and you'll want to add this in slowly. So put about 1 cup in, give that a good stir so that all of your flour and everything doesn't get clumpy or anything. Once that's gotten a good stir and it's all combined, you can add in another cup. And again, just keep stirring. Watch for things to get clumpy. You don't want anything to get clumpy, so you can just keep stirring it with your wire whisk there. And go ahead and add in the rest of your chicken stock, and you'll see your soup is really starting to come to life. So this is going to need to come up to a simmer. Once you have your chicken stock in, then you're going to add in your potatoes. This is the next part that's going to bring our clam chowder to the creamy deliciousness it will be at the end. The starch in the potatoes will also help to thicken up your stock. So add your potatoes in. Be careful not to splash anything because this is your clam juice and your chicken stock. You don't want to get rid of all those fluids and liquids. They're absolutely delicious. So go ahead and add in your potatoes, give them a good stir, and then you're going to put the lid on and you're going to let this simmer for a little while. Let it cook for about 15 minutes or so until all of your potatoes are nice and tender. You'll want to check on it regularly, make sure you're stirring it, keep your fire down low enough that you're not burning anything, and it'll be ready to go in no time. While that is simmering, we're going to go ahead and take our dump cake out. Oh my goodness, can you see the bubbles? My mouth is watering. I am editing this after we ate this delicious meal, obviously, and I really want another dump cake. I feel like maybe I'll have to make one of those this weekend. So go ahead and put that to the side and you'll let that cool. While that's cooling and our potatoes are cooking, we're going to get started on our cheddar biscuits. So for this recipe, you're going to start off with flour. You'll need 2 cups total of flour. I'm using a 1/2 cup scoop here, so that's why you're seeing me go in a couple more times. That's the only thing that fits in the top of my flour container, but you're gonna need 2 total cups of flour. Next up is our cheese. For this recipe, you're going to need about 1 cup and maybe 1 1/2 cups of cheddar cheese. So normally I would, I forgot that I whacked my my cutter there, my cheese grater. Whoops, real life. Anyway, normally I would use a white cheddar cheese. However, for this recipe, I wanted it to have that traditional cheddar biscuit look. So we're going with the yellow cheese today. I'm still using Cabot and it's a sharp cheddar. I definitely recommend using the sharpest cheddar you can find for this recipe. It just adds so much flavor. So again, I'm just kind of eyeballing it, making sure I have 1 cup and then some. And it called for 1 1/2 cups and I probably put in maybe 1.5 cups. But I think more cheese is always a win. Next up is baking powder. You need a tablespoon of baking powder. This is what gives your biscuits some fluff. And then we're going to season them with garlic powder. Now for the garlic, you're going to need about 1 teaspoon or so of garlic powder. And you can put a little more, a little less, depending on what you like. Do not skip this part. It is absolutely essential to the deliciousness of these biscuits. Next up, we're going to use a little bit of salt. I think the recipe calls for about 1/2 teaspoon. So we want to put in a little bit of salt in there, make some extra delicious. And then the biggest ingredient we're going to use today is our parsley. So you're going to want to get nice fresh parsley and flat leaf parsley. And you're going to need about 2 tablespoons of fresh parsley for this recipe. Some of it goes inside and some of it is going to go on top of your biscuits. So make sure that you are peeling or plucking your leaves off of the parsley, and then you're going to go ahead and give it a really good chop. So you want to dice it up nice and small, start off with some big strokes, and then what I like to do is hold the tip of my knife down on my cutting board, and then I kind of make like this paper cutter motion, if you will, and go across my herbs that way. And this is going to give you a really good fine chop and make them, nice and flaky so that they're digestible and easy to eat in your biscuits. Once those are all diced up and ready to go, add them into your bowl, and then you're going to give all of your dry ingredients a good mix. We're not mixing in any of our wet ingredients yet. We're going to put those in separately, but just make sure that your dry ingredients are fully incorporated and ready to go. Next up, grab yourself another mixing bowl, and in this bowl, you're going to add in your butter. You're going to need about 1/3 cup of butter that's softened. You're also going to need 1 egg and 3/4 cup of water. Of milk. I actually put in a whole cup of water. I accidentally used my 1/3 cup instead of my 1/4 cup, if you noticed right there. So mine were perfectly fine, and my butter wasn't all the way softened. Part of it was, that part right there was, but the rest of it wasn't. So I was just a hot mess here. I was not 100% prepared. Full disclaimer, but I'm leaving it in there because this is real life, right? So my biscuits turned out perfectly fine. If you make a mistake, don't even panic. Go ahead and add your wet ingredients to your dry ingredients and give them a good stir. I'm using a whisk, but you can just use the fork if you wanted to. I realized that really wasn't giving me a good, zhuzh, that little tiny whisk that I was using there came with that mixing bowl from TJ Maxx, and it was not doing the job. So I went in with my hands and just made sure that all of my dough was fully incorporated. You don't want to over mix it because that'll make your biscuits kind of crumbly and tough, but mix it enough so that everything is incorporated. Wash your hands, grab yourself a sheet pan, give it a good amount of Pam or whatever nonstick you want to use, and then it's time to get your biscuits going. So this recipe is designed to make 8 biscuits. So what I'm doing is I'm using a tablespoon, and I am just doing a drop biscuit. We're not going to be rolling these out or anything like that. These are so quick and easy. It's wonderful. Just like a drop cookie, scoop some out and drop it onto your sheet pan. Make 8 of them, and then take whatever you have left in your bowl and divide it among them all to help them all be about the same size. They're going to be really big, and what we did was split them with my kiddos. Each kid got a half, and then they could go back for more if they wanted, but a whole one is really big, and they're pretty dense, so they're very filling. But it's up to you. You could even make them smaller and just bake them, for a quicker amount of time. You're going to pop these into your oven at 350, and you're going to bake them for about 8 to 10 minutes. So I'm just popping those into the oven, and I put it on 8 minutes to check them. That's always how I do it. I always start at the lowest. And now we're going to go back to our soup. So as you can see, it's bubbling up there, and our potatoes are ready to go. I'm using a flat wooden spoon to just scrape across the bottom. That just helps to make sure that all of the yumminess across the bottom has been lifted and is, in the soup. And now we're going to add in our clams. So we've got 2 cans, like we mentioned before, with the clam juice. Make sure you add that in there. Give it a good stir. Make sure it gets fully incorporated, and make sure that your heat is not too high. You want it simmering and bubbling, but not too high, pretty low. Finally, you're going to add in your half and half. You don't want to add that too soon because that will overcook the creaminess of your half and half, but add that into your soup, and you are getting really close to being able to eat this deliciousness. And while that is simmering, we're going to go back over to our cutting board and get the topping for our biscuits ready. So for your topping, you're going to melt a little bit of butter. You need about 2 tablespoons, and you're going to add in about a teaspoon of garlic powder and about a tablespoon or so of parsley. This part is completely optional. You don't have to do this. Your biscuits will come out and be absolutely delicious, and you can just put a little pat of butter on them if you wanted. However, this just takes them to that next level, and they're so delicious. So I would recommend doing this part. So again, I'm just picking off some parsley leaves. I'm going to give those a good chop. We're going to add that to our butter. We're going to put that in the microwave and get it nice and melted so that when we take out our biscuits, they'll be ready to go. We're just going to pour this right on top. They'll absorb a little bit of it, and they'll be so delicious and buttery when we eat them with our soup. The final step for our soup is to add in a little bit of cornstarch to give it that nice, thick and creamy consistency. You're going to mix 1 tablespoon of cornstarch with 1 tablespoon of water and add that to your soup. Let it simmer for about 5 minutes, and you'll be ready to eat. Okay, my friends, we have finished up with our dinner. I have it all plated up over here and I am ready to give it a try. So I'm gonna start by trying the delicious clam chowder. It is steaming and delicious and just looks so incredible. So let's go ahead and give it a try. Tastes like a restaurant. You know what I forgot? I forgot my oyster crackers. This part is entirely skippable. If you don't like to put crackers on your soup, you can completely skip that part. But adding in that little bit of crunch to your soup is absolutely delicious. Next up, I'm gonna give our biscuit a try. Looks so flaky and yummy. With the butter and the fresh parsley on top, oh my goodness. Finally, let's go ahead and give our dump cake a try. I've got my own little serving here, and let's give it a try. So good. Very cobbler-esque, and using the salted butter on top just gives it a little extra flavor. You could top this with a little bit of fresh whipped cream from a can, Cool Whip, ice cream, whatever you want. I like it just the way it is. So, all right, my friends, that is it for today's Foodie Friday Cook With Me video. I hope that you enjoyed this. I highly recommend you give this meal a try, especially on a cool fall night. It is so perfect. And until the next video, my friends, happy eating. I'll see you soon. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another Cook With Me. I'm super excited to have you joining me for today's Foodie Friday. In today's video, we are going to be making two of my favorites. We're gonna make a homemade tomato basil soup, again using our Instant Pot because that thing is the best. And we're also gonna be making a super delicious protein-packed salad that is hands down my favorite salad ever, and I just think soup and salad is perfect. I just want to point out, Charlie's having a snack. If you guys are here from my old planner channel, and now Guinness is crying for attention in the background. If you guys are here from my old planner channel, I had a dog named Colby. He has since passed away. He passed in February of 2020. He was very old and very, very loved, but he was notorious for coming to take the loudest drinks while I was filming my Plan With Me. Like, I'm pretty sure almost every single video of my early Plan With Me's, you can hear him gulping his water in the background. So now that's Charlie and her clickety clack, and she's having a little snack of cat food. Yeah, because apparently she's hungry and I need to feed her dinner. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna start by getting all of the things that we need for our tomato soup into our Instant Pot so that can get cooking. While that's cooking, we're gonna work on our salad. So let's get started. So for today's recipe, we're actually going to be using our Instant Pot to saute all of our vegetables first. So we need to dice up a celery, or a celery. We're gonna need to dice up more than one celery. Celery, carrots, onion, and we'll saute those here in the Instant Pot. I didn't know if you knew, or I don't know if you know, you can saute things in the Instant Pot, but you can. So we're gonna do that, and then we'll add our seasoning and our chicken broth, and we'll let that cook, and our diced tomatoes as well. And then we'll make a roux on the side, and we'll add that in later to thicken it up. So let's get our vegetables diced, and then we will saute them up. I'm gonna actually turn this on and get it preheating. We're gonna click saute, and that way it starts to heat up, so when I drop those vegetables in, you'll hear the sizzle right away and the saute will get started.
For today's recipe, you're going to need 1 cup of carrot, 1 cup of onion, as well as 1 cup of celery, and you're going to chop them up pretty small. They don't have to be diced or anything. You just want to cut them up so that they can soften when you are sauteing them and when they're cooking in the Instant Pot in the pressure cooker. You're also going to need 2 14.5-ounce cans of diced tomatoes, and you aren't going to drain these. You'll also need 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, 4 cups of low sodium chicken broth, as well as 1/4 a cup of fresh basil leaves chopped. Now, I know you remember in my last video, I was really struggling to find basil. I was lucky enough to find some this time, but a lot of you fantastic subscribers had mentioned getting a basil leaf, a basil plant for future recipes. And I want you to know I am on the hunt. I have not been able to find one yet. I may have to grow one from seeds. A little late for that, but I might have to grow one. I'm going to keep my eye out and check some local nurseries, but I have not been able to find one as of yet. But hopefully I will get there. So as I was saying, yes, last thing I left off on was the basil leaves. You're also going to need dried oregano. You're going to need some butter, some flour. You're going to need a cup of Parmesan cheese, as well as half and half. You'll need a cup and a half and some salt, and then we're going to go over some seasonings later. So we'll talk about when you're going to add all those in here in just a little bit, but for now we're just going to focus on getting our vegetables cut up and ready to go into our Instant Pot, which is heating behind me. Now, one thing that I just want to mention when you are following a recipe, because you're going to notice, this is, I think, cook with me number 4, that if I'm using a recipe, I don't always follow it verbatim. There are times that I do, especially if I'm baking. I don't typically veer off of the recipe if I'm baking, but when I'm cooking, a lot of times I'll add my own things. And so feel free to do the same when you're making any of these recipes. If you don't like something, omit it. If you like something else, try it. Just be creative and make it your own. So now that we have our vegetables diced up, we're gonna go ahead and add about a tablespoon of olive oil into our Instant Pot. And then you can hear that lovely saute sound. That is probably my favorite sound in cooking. Excuse me, I'm not even on camera. And we're gonna let that bad boy saute up and soften. Now, it doesn't have to do this for a very long time because the Instant Pot is going to make all of our vegetables very soft, but this is just gonna kind of cook them a little bit, give them a little bit of a caramelize before we add in the rest of the ingredients and put the lid on. So here's the basil that I was able to find, and for this recipe, like I mentioned, you'll need about 1/4 cup chopped up. I think I did end up going with a little bit more. I probably have closer to, no, I was going to say closer to 1/2 cup, but no, it probably is somewhere around 1/4 cup once I have it all cut up. But I like a lot of basil. I think it's a really delicious taste, and so I like to have it, pretty predominant. Once you have your vegetables sauteed for a few minutes and they've started to soften, you're going to add those 2 cans of undrained diced tomatoes. Now, you want to make sure when you're buying your tomatoes that you don't get any that are seasoned. And then you're going to squeeze in 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. You can get the kind in the little cans. I always have this little tube of tomato paste in my fridge because I use it a lot. And then we're adding those 4 cups of chicken broth. You can use low sodium chicken broth. It's up to you. You're going to add in a teaspoon of oregano. And you're also going to add in your basil leaves at this point. Get it all stirred up and you're ready to pressure cook. Okay, so now that the rest of the ingredients are in the Instant Pot, I turned off the saute, and we're gonna put the lid on, and we're gonna make sure that it is closed. So you wanna make sure it's sealed. And then we're gonna put it on pressure cook high for 5 minutes. Now, I know you're probably thinking this only has to cook for 5 minutes. Yes, but the pressure has to get there
which can take roughly about 10 minutes. So you're gonna cook it on high pressure for 5 minutes, and then when it beeps, you don't wanna have it keep warm. You wanna turn that part off and let it naturally release for 5 minutes, and then you can manually release whatever is left in the steam, and then you'll take the lid off and we'll add the roux after we've made it. So we're gonna go ahead and do pressure. Mine is on 45 minutes from those carnitas we did last time. We're gonna take it way down to 5 minutes, and then we're gonna turn off the keep warm. That's just clicking it, turning it off. That way it'll stop cooking and doing all of those things and naturally release the pressure. And that is it. So now I'm gonna clean up a little bit, and we're gonna get our eggs started. We're gonna boil some eggs for our salad, and we're gonna clean up a little like I just said, and then we'll make our roux to prepare for the other part of the soup. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're going to hard boil some eggs for our salad. Now, because I'm only going to be making a few eggs, I'm gonna actually use my Dash egg cooker that I got at Target 100 years ago. I think I maybe spent $10 on it. If you don't have one of these cool little things, I highly recommend that you get one. It says that you can do all kinds of things like make omelet eggs and all this other stuff. I only use it to hard boil eggs, and hard boil eggs when I'm in a pinch and I need to get them done quickly. I did get a lot of comments on my 4th of July video when I made the deviled eggs about using the Instant Pot for hard-boiled eggs, and I will definitely be giving that a try, but it's currently in use, and since we're only gonna be making a couple, we're gonna do it here in this cool little cooker, and this only takes about 7 minutes. So I'm gonna plug it in. I'm gonna have to follow the directions to make to use it. So what it says is that you have to poke a hole in your egg if they're large, which these are like medium. So I don't really know that I need to poke a hole in them, but I'm going to anyway, just to make sure that they don't explode. And then I put in the right amount of water. It comes with this cool little tool that both has the piece to pierce your eggs, and then you flip it over, and it's also a measuring cup. So that's what we're gonna use to put the right amount of water and pierce our eggs. We'll get those going. Sounds like our Instant Pot is rapidly getting up to pressure, so then we'll make our roux while these are cooking, and it's gonna be time to assemble our salad. I'm so excited.
As I mentioned, you could definitely cook your eggs any way that suits you. You do not have to use this nifty little egg cooker. But when I'm only cooking a few, this holds 7. If I'm cooking 7 or less, I typically will use this tool. It takes like maybe 10 minutes to hard boil these eggs, and I find that to be really, really convenient. What I will say is I must be doing something wrong, because when I peel them, it's really hard to peel them. And I do take them out, put them in the ice bath. That is typically supposed to help. But if you have one of these Dash egg cookers and I'm doing it wrong, or you have a tip, holler at your girl. I could really use some assistance. Next up, we're gonna get our roux going. So I'm gonna get our butter melting. You need a half a cup of butter, which is 1 whole stick.
Okay. So our butter is melting, our eggs are cooking, our soup has 1 minute left on the actual pressure cooking, then it's going to, it's gonna depressurize on its own. So the butter is melting for the roux. I am going to get started. If you don't know this by now in my Cook With Me's, oh, there it is. I am a firm believer in maximizing our time. Maybe it's because I'm a mom and I have 100 mouths to feed. Maybe it's because I really like to eat and I want to get food done as quickly as possible. It's a lot of beeping. Or maybe it's the ADHD in me, I'm not sure, but I always have multiple things going on at once, and I'm always cleaning as I go, and it just makes things so much easier. So while the butter is melting all the way, I'm going to start by chopping up the lettuce for our salad. Today I am using romaine hearts. These are organic romaine hearts. However, that's only because that's what was available at Price Chopper when I went today. I don't typically buy organic, so don't be off-put by the organic part. You just need some romaine hearts. Now you can use any other kind of lettuce that you want for this. I like romaine hearts because they're very hearty and crispy, and they really hold up for this salad because we're also going to be adding bacon and eggs and cucumber and tomato and season and dressing and cheese. So I need this lettuce to hold up. It sounds like while I was talking, my butter finished. So why don't we actually go over and finish up the roux, and then we'll come back to the salad.
So I've been tossing around the word roux a lot in this video, and I just want to make sure that you know what that is. I definitely did not when I first started to cook, but a roux just basically means melted butter and flour that you cook for a few minutes to get rid of the starchy flavor, and it's a thickening agent. So you use this in all kinds of soups and sauces to thicken up whatever it is that you're making. And so you're just going to let this kind of cook together. You're going to leave it on a simmer, and it's not really going to thicken, but when you add it to your soup, it will thicken up whatever it is you're adding it to. Now, the recipe does call for adding soup into this to temper it and to, do it all fancy-pantsy, but I don't do that. I typically just pour the roux directly into my soup. So you'll see that in a little bit. But while this is preparing and simmering and the Instant Pot is finishing up, we're going to get our bacon going. Bacon is for our salad, and you can use turkey bacon if you prefer it. I am not a turkey bacon fan, but my whole entire family is. So if everybody was home, I probably would have made more turkey bacon and just a little bit of regular bacon, but they are not here. So it's just Michaela and I, so we're doing regular bacon. And the Instant Pot had gone off. I let it sit for 5 minutes, and now I am letting the rest of the steam out, and then we'll get it open. And while that is going, our eggs also finished, and so I've got my ice bath, and we're gonna get our eggs right into this water so that they'll be ready for me to peel. Like I said, I really struggled getting these peeled. I don't know if it was something I was doing wrong, but it happens to the best of us. We're going to go ahead and take off the lid now that the red indicator has dropped, and we're going to move on to the next part of our soup.
Okay, so our soup is done. Well, it's done with pressure cooking, and it's just a nice little tomato soup going on right now with really soft vegetables. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a potato masher, and I'm gonna mash this up. There's multiple ways that you can do this. You can put this in a blender or use an immersion blender if you want to, if you want it really, really creamy. I like it to have a little bit of a bite, like a little bit of, chunks of the vegetables and something that you're not just drinking. I like to have a little bit of texture, something to chew while I'm eating. So I'm just going to take the masher and I'm going to mash the things up to the best of my ability. If it seems like I'm not getting them mashed very well, which looks like I might be struggling a little bit, this might take me a little bit, but while I do that, my bacon is cooking as well. I'm gonna go flip that over really quickly. I'm going to mash this up, and then we're gonna add about a cup of this to our roux to let the roux come to temperature, and then we're gonna dump it in.
I also totally just lied to you. The recipe calls for adding the soup into the roux beforehand, but I don't do that. It's okay. It works anyway.
Okay, so I am struggling to get the carrots soft enough, well, small enough. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add the vegetables, the chunks, into a NutriBullet, or I don't know, I'm sure there's other brands, so that it's taking out most of the liquid and it's just putting in the vegetables. They're pretty small for the most part, and I'm not going to take every single piece. I'm just looking for like those big carrot pieces. It looks like I got them all, except for that one right there that just came out of the Instant Pot, but the rest of it is mashed small enough. And I'm just gonna pop this little bit into the blender, and then I'm gonna pour it right back in.
So if you have an emulsion blender, you could totally use that during this part, or if you have a big blender, that would work too. I just needed to mash a little bit of those vegetables, so I decided to use the bullet, but you don't have to have this tool to do this. You can use any other kind of blender. We're just gonna go ahead and add that back into our soup. And like I said, this will thicken up over time. It's not gonna get so thick like a chowder, but it's gonna get nice and thick like a creamy tomato soup. Oh my goodness, you guys are gonna love this.
Okay, so I moved our soup over into a pot on my stove because I didn't feel, I wanted my soup to kind of come back up to like a simmer, not necessarily a boil, but a simmer. So I brought it over here to the stove and I've got it back on. I'm gonna let this simmer up and thicken up. While that's doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and start to assemble our salad. We've got our bacon done, our eggs are in the ice bath. It's time to assemble our salad while this thickens up, and then we're gonna add in the last final ingredients. We've gotta add in some half and half and some cheese, and we'll get our croutons, and it's almost time to eat. My mouth is watering. I'm so excited.
So let's get cracking on our salad. So now when you use romaine hearts, check your bag. Sometimes they come pre-washed, sometimes they don't. That was me checking the bag right there. I had picked up organic romaine hearts, and not because I typically do organic, but just because that's what they had available. And it was already pre-washed. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cut this up. And I'm cutting it once down the middle, and then just like you just saw there, kind of into those little bite-sized pieces. I don't like them too small. I like them pretty big so they can, withstand all the toppings we're going to add. And I'm just adding them onto a long serving dish. Now, you can use whatever kind of dressing you like. I am obsessed with the Marie Callender's ranch. It's the only ranch that I like from the grocery store unless I'm making my own, but this one is hands down the best. It is so delicious. And we're just gonna kind of mix it in a little bit. I'm not coating everything. It's just enough to give it some flavor. And that's it. We're not gonna toss the whole entire thing. Next up are some plum tomatoes. I just gave those a quick wash, and now we're going to cut these up. Now, you can cut these with a serrated knife if your knife is not very sharp and you find that it's just sliding off the outside of the tomato. Use a serrated butter knife. That will work a heck of a lot better. My knife is really, really sharp, so it does okay. But if it wasn't, that's what I would be using. And when my kids help me do any kind of salad prep like this, I have them use a serrated knife just because it grips the tomato a little bit better, and you don't have to worry about it sliding off of the soft rubber-like tomatoes. So we're just going to add that across the top. You can add as much or as little tomato as you like. I did 2 plum tomatoes, and that covered up my 1 head of romaine really, really well. Next up, we're going up to our hard-boiled egg. We're going to dice it up. Now, not everybody likes hard-boiled egg. My daughter definitely does not, but I love hard-boiled egg in my salad. It adds great texture, delicious flavor, and really healthy protein. So if you're not interested in adding like chicken or any other kind of meat, you can add in some egg, and that'll bump up the protein value of your salad and make it a lot more hearty. So we're using 3 hard-boiled eggs here, and as you saw me struggle to get those peeled, once they're done, I'm just dicing them up into bite-sized pieces and adding them to the top of the salad. You can use as much or as little as you like. Like I said, I'm doing 3, and I saved those others for deviled eggs for the next day. I actually decided instead of making deviled eggs, I ended up making egg salad sandwiches, and they were delicious, which is basically just deviled eggs on a piece of bread. Let's be honest, right? So, like I said, add as much egg or as little egg as you like. If you don't like egg at all, you can completely omit this part, but having hard-boiled egg in your salad is what really brings your chef salad to life. So we're getting that on there, and then we're going to clean up our workspace a little bit because from the water from washing the tomatoes as well as all of that egg yolk, we were getting a little bit messy. So next up, you want to take some time to season up your salad. So I'm adding salt and pepper to my salad. This part, again, you can skip, but I wouldn't. Just adding a little bit of that salt and pepper on there makes a huge difference. And then I'm shredding a little bit of sharp cheddar onto the top. You can use any kind of cheese that you like, but I really love the Cabot Vermont sharp cheddar on this. It's absolutely delicious, and I would highly recommend it. And finally, we're going to top off our salad with our bacon. So our bacon has cooled, and I have patted it as much as I could of the excess grease, and then I'm dicing it up into bite-sized pieces, and we're just going to sprinkle this across the top. Again, you could use turkey bacon, or if you are vegetarian, you could completely leave this part out. But here is our chef salad all complete, and I'm not kidding you guys. This salad is addicting. It is so good. Highly recommend you give it a shot. We're going to finish up our soup now. You're supposed to add in 1 cup of grated Parmesan. I probably added in a cup and a quarter. We like a lot of cheese in my family, so I just add a little bit more. It does give it a little bit more flavor. And you're going to mix that in and have it melt. And then you're going to add in your 1.5 cups of half and half. So this part is what makes your soup extra, extra creamy. Don't skip out on this part. Definitely do the half and half. It makes a huge difference, and it's delicious. So we're going to add in the half and half, and then we'll mix that in. And then I do have it on low heat, and that's just going to allow the soup to kind of come back up to a really good temperature now that we've put in the cold half and half. And then at this point, you can taste your soup to decide if you need to add any further seasoning. So you could do salt and pepper, obviously. However, I like to spice up mine a little bit more. So what I'm adding is salt, pepper, as well as my favorite seasoning, Slap Ya Mama. If you have never heard of Slap Ya Mama, it is a Cajun seasoning. It does have a little bit of a kick, not really much, just a little bit. It does have some cayenne pepper in it, but it is delicious, you guys. It's good on roast and meatloaf. It's good on anything, really, especially in the soup. Give it a shot if you haven't.
Okay, so our salad is done. Our soup is ready to get put into the bowl. I'm gonna get the croutons. I just wanna give you a little tip. So the recipe that I'm gonna have linked for you down below for the tomato soup, it is pretty simple, and it does not have a lot of seasoning. In fact, it doesn't even call for a lot of salt. Now, canned tomatoes can have a very distinct flavor. Sometimes I think they're even a little bit bitter. And some people will add a little pinch of sugar if they're making like a homemade spaghetti sauce. What I do is I just season it up a whole heck of a lot. So I like really flavorful food. If you like really flavorful food, I would highly recommend that you taste your soup when you have finished the recipe and decide if it's got enough zhuzh for you. It definitely does not for me. So I was gonna say did and does, and I said diz, but it doesn't for me. So what I did was I added salt. I also added garlic powder, and I added a little bit of Slap Your Mama seasoning, which is kind of like a Cajun seasoning. It's delicious. It's got a tiny bit of a kick to it because it's got some cayenne in it. It's delicious, and now it tastes way better. So definitely taste it. Make sure that it's what you're looking for, but you're probably gonna need to add some more. So you can also do a grilled cheese on the side. If you get on Pinterest, there are so many recipes for some leveled up grilled cheese sandwiches. We're not gonna do a grilled cheese today. My daughter's actually gonna make one off camera, but we're not gonna be making grilled cheese for today. We're gonna actually just be doing the soup and the salad because that's what I was craving. But lots of good things go with tomato soup. You can even make mozzarella sticks on the side
to go along with this soup, that would be delicious as well. But I'm gonna get this into a bowl. Like, my mouth is literally watering as I'm talking. I'm gonna grab the croutons, and I actually have some bread to go with this as well. And then Michaela and I are gonna sit down and eat. All right, it's time to plate up our soup. We're just gonna ladle this into a bowl. And like I said, we're gonna top this with some croutons. My family loves the Texas toast croutons. These are delicious. They basically taste just like Texas toast. Put them in there and they will soften. We're also gonna eat it with a side of this brown bread from the Cheesecake Factory. You just heat this up and it's absolutely delicious and so soft. And here is our meal, ready to go. My mouth is watering as I am editing this video. So absolutely delicious. Okay, my friends, my salad and soup is ready to go. My mouth is watering. I have waited long enough to eat. I'm going to go devour this food now. Just so you know, this salad is not one single serving. This is probably 3 to 4 servings. But this salad, if you don't dress it and you just put all of the other toppings and leave the dressing off, you can pre-make this in your fridge, usually like 2 to 3 days ahead of time. So this is one of the salads I bring to work all the time. But that is it for today's Foodie Friday. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, I would love for you to consider giving it a big thumbs up. I'd love to have you subscribe and come back for more. We are rapidly growing this channel. I am so excited and I can't thank you enough. And I will see you in the next video. Have a great day, guys. Happy eating. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Tiffany, and today we're gonna be making a really delicious, warm and comforting, creamy tortilla soup for those chilly fall nights. I know here in New England, we have been experiencing some pretty chilly nights. There have been some with even freeze warnings. And I know across the country, there has definitely been some snow already. So if you need an easy recipe, a weeknight recipe that you can make really quickly and affordably and can make your family feel warm and cozy from the inside out, this is the recipe for you. Today's recipe calls for cooked chicken breast. Now you can do this a number of ways. You can purchase the rotisserie chicken ready-made and just use that if you don't have the time or if you want to just make things go a little bit quicker. You can also pre-cook your chicken breast. So if you're making something else earlier in the week and you want to make a little extra so you have some for this, you can do that as well. But today we're going to be utilizing my new air fryer. I did just recently purchase a air fryer that I have here on my countertop. It's one I've been wanting for a while. It is from the Drew Barrymore Beautiful line at Walmart. This is not sponsored, but had my eye on this bad boy for a while. I'm glad that I finally snagged one. So I'm gonna try to cook my chicken breast in my air fryer to see if that saves us some time, and we'll see how it goes. So while that's cooking in the air fryer, we can get the rest of our ingredients going, and hopefully we'll have this meal together in under a half an hour. Okay, to get us started today, we are going to grab 2 chicken breasts. Now these chicken breasts are really thick, so I wasn't 100% sure how they would cook inside of the air fryer, so I just sliced them in half. I'm using a really sharp knife. This is the easiest way to get your chicken nice and thin. If I were cooking this on the stovetop, I would have cut this into at least 3 pieces, but in the air fryer, I figured just in half would be perfectly fine. I'm now going to layer them in a single layer in the air fryer bucket. I don't know what you refer to this as. I'm going to call it the bucket. And I'm going to season my chicken while it's here in the bucket. So I'm just going to season it with a good amount of salt. Chicken breast is very, very bland, so make sure that you are seasoning it really well. So I'm doing a good amount of salt, and then I'm also going to season it with some onion powder and some garlic powder, as well as some freshly ground black pepper. Once my chicken was fully seasoned, I'm just going to pop it into the air fryer, and I'm going to roast it at 400 degrees for about 17 minutes. And I did end up checking it halfway through. This was the perfect amount of time. Wait till you see how good the chicken comes out. Next up, I'm going to start off with one medium-sized onion. This is a little bit larger, but I did peel off the outside of it, so it did, end up as a medium-sized onion. And you're going to dice this up nice and small. This is going to go into your pan, so dice it how you like it. Do not leave this out. Onion brings such a delicious depth of flavor to a dish, so make sure that you leave this part in. For today's recipe, I am using my cast iron Dutch oven. However, you can use whatever, large stock pot that you have. So we're starting off with 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, and we're going to let that melt at the bottom of our pan. I'm just going to kind of stir it around. I've got my stove on at a little above medium. And once your pan is nice and warm and you've got all of your butter melted, go ahead and add in all of your diced onion, and you're going to let that saute until it's clear and delicious. While that is sauteing, we're going to go ahead and prepare our beans. For this recipe, you're going to need 1 can of black beans, and you want to drain them and rinse them. Make sure that you give them a really good rinse. I'm just using a metal colander, and they'll be ready to go. As I was preparing those, I heard the air fryer finish, so I just took a little peek. We're going to leave that inside with the air fryer off until we're ready for it. Coming back over to the stove, we're going to just stir up our sauteed onions, make sure that they're getting a lot of movement. And now we're going to add in our garlic clove. So the recipe calls for 3 garlic cloves. I put somewhere around there, probably a little bit more. And it also calls for 1 jalapeno pepper. However, I left that out just because my family, I think, would never forgive me if I added that. Next up is tomato paste. We're going to add in 1 tablespoon of tomato paste. Make sure you stir that around and get it fully incorporated with the rest of your vegetables. And then we're going to add in our other items that come from the cans. So you're going to add in your can of black beans that you've drained and rinsed. You're also going to add in 1 can of corn that's been drained. And finally, 1 can of Rotel diced tomatoes with the green chilies undrained. Next up, you're going to go ahead and add in your stock. So for this recipe, you need 5 cups of chicken stock. I'm adding in 4 cups here with an additional cup on the side. It actually comes out to 1 box and a cup if you're using the box of chicken stock. Go ahead and give that a good stir, and that'll start to come together. Now we're going to season it up a little bit. So you are going to use some hot sauce. The recipe calls for 1 to 2 teaspoons of hot sauce. So just toss in as much as you prefer. You're also going to use some taco seasoning. The recipe calls for an entire packet, but you can start off with a little bit and add more as you see fit. I ended up using about 3/4 of the packet. Not the whole entire packet, but that's completely up to you. Now it's time to prepare our roasted chicken to go into our soup. So I'm just adding the chicken into this large mixing bowl. I will tell you that the chicken was perfectly cooked. It was still nice and juicy. That was a perfect way of cooking it. And I'm just using my hand mixer here on high speed to shred up my chicken. This is the easiest way to do this job. Make sure that you peel apart any larger chunks by hand. You can remove any of the hard pieces on your chicken as it was roasting, so that way you don't have any of those hard bits in your soup. And then your chicken is ready to go. You're just going to bring that over to your soup and add that in, and then make sure you stir it so it's fully incorporated. Next up, we're going to add in some cream cheese. So for this recipe, you need about 1/3 cup of cream cheese that has been softened. This will take a little bit of time for it to fully incorporate, but just make sure you stir it so that it is melting appropriately. While that's going, you're going to work on your cheddar cheese. So for this recipe, you need 1.5 cups of shredded cheddar cheese. You're going to put some of that into your actual soup, and some of it you're going to use for the top of your soup. I am using Cabot's Vermont extra sharp cheddar. This is my absolute favorite. I use it in every one of my recipes that requires any kind of cheddar cheese. I think it's got a really great bite to it, and it's absolutely delicious. So completely up to you what you would like to do with that. But I'm adding in about 1 cup of the cheese. Go ahead and stir that in until it's nice and melty. And then I did reserve the rest of the cheese for the top of our soup. Now we're going to add in the last of our ingredients, and that is a pinch of cayenne pepper, which I was actually out of, so I didn't add that, and a teaspoon of cumin. Cumin is just going to give it that nice smoky flavor, so you'll add a little bit of that, and then I'm just making sure that this little bit of cream cheese that I had left was fully incorporated, so I just kind of broke it up a little bit and then made sure that it was fully mixed in. Now we're going to prepare our toppings for our soup. So you can really do whatever you want here. I am doing cheddar cheese as well as diced avocado and some chopped cilantro. And we also ended up using the Cool Ranch Doritos crunched up to top our soup, And you could use regular tortilla chips if you prefer. We just wanted something with a little bit more of a bite. We also topped ours with a little bit of sour cream and some fresh lime juice. I know cilantro is one of those seasonings that you either love or you hate. Where do you fall on that? Are you I love cilantro, or do you think it smells and tastes like soap? Let me know where you stand. We were having this debate this morning, and I love fresh cilantro. I think it's fantastic in any kind of Mexican cooking or Hispanic cooking. It is exceptionally good in this soup. If you like cilantro, make sure you put a really good helping on top of yours. It is so delicious. Because our soup came together so super fast and I really didn't have a whole lot of dishes, I decided just to really quickly wash them while I let the soup come to a boil and fully incorporate. So I'm just going to give these dishes a quick wash and we'll get our soup plated up. Okay, our soup has been simmering at medium-low heat for about 15 minutes, and we are ready to eat. Our beans are nice and soft, everything is fully incorporated, and it's time to get this into our tummies. So I'm just gonna get this plated up, and it's gonna be time to eat. Like I mentioned, I chose to top my soup with a little extra cheese, some freshly diced avocados, some fresh cilantro, a little bit of extra hot sauce, as well as a splash of fresh lime juice. I also topped the soup with some crumbled up Doritos in the seasoning Cool Ranch, and I did end up adding a little bit of sour cream once I was off camera. I forgot that while I was on camera, but the mix of the fresh cilantro, the lime juice, and the Cool Ranch Doritos, it was just absolutely perfect.
Okay, my friends, my soup is done and it looks and smells amazing. I can't believe how quickly it got dark in here. I started this video with natural light, but man, I lost that really quickly. Gotta thank good old daylight savings. So let's go ahead and give this soup a try. I'm so excited. I have been so under the weather. Any kind of delicious soup is, you know, the way to go for me. Oh my goodness, it's so good. I put a little extra hot sauce in mine. Figured it would clean out my sinuses pretty well. That fresh cilantro and that little bit of lime on the top, so good. And honestly, I have to tell you, I'm so very impressed with how well the air fryer roasted our chicken. It was perfectly cooked. It took 15 minutes. It was so easy and the cleanup was fantastic. And I'm gonna use that now for every time I need to roast some chicken for sure. All right, my friends, that brings us to the end of another Cook With Me video. I hope you found this very quick and easy meal to be both delicious and motivating. I hope you give this one a try. I'll have the recipe linked for you down below. I promise you this will not disappoint, and make sure you use the extra hot sauce. It makes it super good and I hope you enjoy it. If you do try this recipe, make sure that you tag me on Instagram at Charlotte Grove Farmhouse. I would love to see how you enjoyed this recipe, and until the next one, my friends, have a great day. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another Foodie Friday Cook With Me. Fall is finally upon us. It may not feel like it where you live. I totally recognize that, especially from all my friends back in Vegas. I know it's been really, really hot there, but here, it's been in the 70s, absolutely beautiful, and fall is finally here. Football has started, we're back in school, and it's time to do some fall goodness. So today, we're gonna be whipping out some delicious mini bites for football Sundays. We definitely like to watch football here in our house. My husband is from Texas, so of course he is a natural born Cowboys fan. And we're gonna be making some food that is delicious pub style finger foods. First and foremost, we're gonna be making a fan favorite here in my house, that is tachos, or tater tot nachos. They're absolutely delicious. We're also gonna be making a Monte Cristo slider. If you've ever had a Monte Cristo, it is a delicious ham and turkey sandwich that has been deep fried, covered in powdered sugar. It's phenomenal if you've never had one. This is an easy way to make them for a crowd, and you don't have to fry anything. It makes it much easier. We're also gonna be making a copycat of the Chili's queso dip. So their skillet queso dip. We love the Chili's queso dip. It is delicious. It's a fan favorite as well. And then the last thing we're gonna be making is something my kids literally lose their mind over when they hear I'm making it, and that is banana pudding. So this one is an easy recipe that feeds a crowd. I make it all the time. My kids love it. And we're gonna top it all off with a delicious and easy raspberry lemonade margarita. So we got a lot on our plate today. Let's go ahead and get started.
To get started on our tachos, we are going to cook our tater tots. So I'm starting with a sheet pan, then I'm going to line it with some tin foil. Now this part isn't necessary, however, I feel like it's a twofold. It makes the cleanup a heck of a lot easier, and it also kind of crisps up your tater tots a little bit more. So spray it really well with Pam so that your tater tots don't stick to it. And then I'm using this big bag of tater bites that we purchased at Price Chopper. And normally, if I were really making this for a big crowd, which typically I would be, however, it's the weekend, which means half my children have scattered. I'm only going to be making about half the bag, but if I were making this for everybody, I typically would make 2 trays, which would give us leftovers. There is nothing better than some tachos in the morning, fried up in the pan with a drippy egg on top. So don't be afraid of leftovers. They taste delicious. But for today, we're just going to make 1 sheet because, like I said, half my children are gone. My teenagers have significant others and they're always away. So for this weekend, we're only feeding the little people. So we're just going to make 1 sheet. So make sure that they are in a single layer. You don't want any that are laying on top of each other. Otherwise, they won't cook evenly. And then pop them into the oven based on the directions on the bag.
Okay, so we've got our tater tots going in the oven. You wanna do that first so that they have plenty of time to crisp up. While that's going, we're gonna get started on our banana pudding so that can get into the fridge and start to cool and harden, well, not harden, but stiffen. And then we're gonna get to working on the sandwiches.
For our banana pudding recipe today, we're going to be using chessman cookies instead of vanilla wafers. If you've never had a chessman cookie, it is a delicious, crispy butter cookie. They are to die for. It's like a shortbread cookie, so very good. Similar to the ones that you might find in those little tins, but absolutely delicious. They're addicting, and they've got these cute little chess players on them. In the spring, you can find them with flowers and birds and butterflies and for the holidays, they do change them up. So keep an eye on them because you can always find them, decked out for the holidays. So we're using a 9x13 dish, and we are just lining the bottom of the dish with the chessman cookies. Now, they're not going to fit perfectly, as you see here. It just kind of breaks them up here at the end, but it does typically take one whole bag of chessman cookies to line the bottom of your pan. Kind of spread them out, get them going. Next up, we're going to use bananas. So you want nice ripe bananas for this. Look for those that have been browned a little bit. It's okay if they've got a little bruising on them. You're not going to see them, but you want them really sweet and completely ripe. So make sure that they are not yellow at all and that they're incredibly easy to cut through. Otherwise, they're going to just add a little bit of a bitter flavor to your banana pudding, and that is not what you want. Now, the recipe that I have followed forever calls for 6 bananas. However, I always go a little over the top because I like a lot of banana to go with a lot of pudding. This recipe does make a lot of puddings, so I'm also going to use this really cool banana slicer that I have. We actually purchased this on Amazon as a joke for my children because they like to cut up their fruit when they eat it. And so my sister-in-law had bought this little banana slicer for my boys to make it easier, and it actually really is incredibly easy. So I'm just using this. I'll put it in my Amazon storefront in my kitchen section, but this part is completely unnecessary. You can just use a knife. This just makes things go super fast, as you can see here, and it's a fun tool to use. So the little banana slicer there, we're just slicing those up. You want them in bite-sized pieces, and then you want to just layer them on top of your chessman cookies. Again, using the amount of bananas that you prefer. Next up, grab another mixing bowl, and we're going to make our vanilla pudding. So for this, you're going to use a 5-ounce bag, and which is typically like the family size. And you're going to make the pudding by doing just the pudding packet and then 2 cups of cold milk into your pudding mixture. It may say something different on the package. To be honest, I've never looked. This is just what the recipe calls for. And then you're going to get a whisk and you're going to mix that up. Now, it's not going to stiffen immediately, but it does go very, very quickly. So just stir it up there, let it start to stiffen, and then put it off to the side to let it finish developing. In another mixing bowl, you're going to do 1 whole 8-ounce cream cheese. You want to make sure that this is softened, so leave it out on your counter for a couple of hours so that it gets nice and soft. It just makes it easier to mix. If it's stiff, it doesn't blend and get creamy, so that's really important that you pay attention to making sure that it gets soft. We're also going to use 1 whole can of sweetened condensed milk. This is one of the small cans. So this has 14 ounces of sweetened condensed milk. And sweetened condensed milk is such a great tool when you're cooking or baking. It also makes a really delicious homemade coffee creamer. So if you ever run out of coffee creamer in your house, but you have some sweetened condensed milk, which I always have, it makes a delicious coffee creamer in a pinch. So, and then you're also going to blend that together. So I'm just grabbing my mixer. You want to make sure that it's nice and creamy because this is going to be the filling of your banana pudding. And you might be thinking, well, why did you use banana pudding? Because the banana flavor is going to come from your actual bananas. We're not doing any artificial banana flavor today. And I actually think that keeps it really fresh and delicious tasting. So mix up your cream cheese and your sweetened condensed milk until they're nice and creamy. And then you're going to add in your vanilla pudding, which, as you can see there now, it is completely developed and nice and stiff. Go ahead and add that in, and then again, just mix it nice and creamy. Make sure that you get all the bits mixed in there. It doesn't take much. And then we're going to add in our final ingredient, and that is Cool Whip. Again, Cool Whip comes in the freezer section, so you want to make sure that you let that come to room temperature, let it soften, not room temperature, but let it soften up and defrost. And this recipe calls for about 12 ounces of whipped topping. However, I can only find it in 8 ounces or like 16 ounces. So I didn't use the entire container. I just used what I needed. And then you're going to use a plastic spatula to just fold that whipped cream in. You don't want to stir this or blend this because you'll lose the fluffy texture. Just make sure you're folding it in. And then you're just going to go ahead and top this on top of all of your bananas. It does make a lot of puddings, so just make sure that you are careful as you're putting this in, and then spread it out across the top of your bananas. Get it nice and into a thin, or not a thin layer, but an even layer, definitely not thin. And then you're going to add the final piece, which is your chessmen cookies. Again, you're going to use one whole package to put chessmen cookies across the top. And when you serve this, typically what ends up happening is a serving is one whole chessmen cookie size. And it ends up working out perfectly. So go ahead and line out your chessmen cookies and your pudding is going to be ready to go. Once you have all of your cookies onto your pudding, go ahead and top it with a little bit of plastic wrap or some kind of topping there. If you've got a lid, you could do that too. I just used some plastic wrap right across the top, and then you're going to pop it into your refrigerator to let it stiffen up before it's time to eat.
Okay, so our banana pudding is done. It's in the fridge. It's stiffening up, and that's gonna be ready to eat here soon. I've also taken out our tater tots. They were done. I could smell them. They were nice and brown and crispy, so they are on top of the stove. We're gonna come back to those here in just a minute, but first things first, we're gonna get our Monte Cristo sandwiches in the oven. And to make those sandwiches, you're gonna start with Hawaiian rolls. Now, if you have never had a Hawaiian roll, which I'm sure that's probably not true, unless you're in a place where they don't sell them, but Hawaiian rolls are a delicious sweet roll. They're sweetened with pineapple juice. They're absolutely delicious. They don't taste like pineapple, but they are so very good. And they're the perfect size for a little slider because they're nice and small. They make a perfect little burger. And they're excellent. So today we're gonna be using them for a sandwich, and we're actually gonna be baking the sandwich. So it's gonna be yum and warm and gooey. So let's go ahead and get started.
For our Monte Cristo sandwiches today, we're going to get started with our Hawaiian rolls. Now you're just going to need one package, but if you need to make more, you can do two. And you're going to take the entire packet, the entire rolls out of the package, leave them all connected, and then cut them in half while they're still connected. I'm using a bread knife here to just cut the top off, and then that's how you're going to put them into your baking dish. I am using a brownie dish today, but you can use any kind of dish that you like. We're going to start with some Dijon mustard, and you're going to spread that all across your sandwiches. Now, again, in typical Tiffany fashion, it calls for about half the amount of Dijon that I'm using right now, but we like a lot of flavor. I don't like my sandwiches to be dry, so I'm definitely putting on more than it calls for, but that's what we like. If you're like me and you like a lot of flavor in your food, definitely double what it says to use in the recipe, because it's just not enough. It's never enough. You always got to do more, right? And as the saying goes, if I am extra, if I'm too much, there's always somebody out there that's less. So if you don't like that much, that's okay. There's going to be somebody out there that does less. We're going to be using baby Swiss today for our sandwich. You can find this in your cheese section in your grocery store. And you're going to put down 6 cheese slices to begin with. So just layer those out, and that'll be our first layer of cheese. I'm just kind of making sure that they're evenly spaced here, so ends up kind of being a double layer. And then we're going to start with some honey ham. So you can use honey ham from the deli if you want. That's what I would prefer. However, the line at the grocery store was crazy when I went, and I did not want to wait. So we're just going to put down a layer of honey ham. I am doing a layer of 2 slices, but again, that's up to you. You could do just 1 slice if you like. And then we're going to add in some turkey breast. I'm using oven roasted turkey breast. You can use whatever you prefer, but I feel like this one has a gentle enough flavor. It's not smoky at all, so it doesn't compete with the rest of the flavors in the sandwich. So go ahead and do another layer of the turkey. Again, I'm doing 2, and I think that's just the right amount of meat. When you're done, it does give you a nice hearty sandwich. And then you're going to top it with another 6 slices of the baby Swiss. When you're done with your toppings, you're going to go ahead and put the top of your sandwiches back on. And now we're going to make our topping. So for this, you're going to use 4 tablespoons of butter. You're going to put this into a glass mixing cup, and this will allow you to pop it into the microwave. You want to melt that. You don't want to get it too hot, so kind of let it sit for a second. And then you're going to add in 1 egg. Mix this up really, really well. Make sure that it's nice and creamy. If your butter is too hot, it will scramble your egg a little bit, so just be careful. I'm mixing it today with a little plastic spoon, and then once that's nice and creamy, you're going to pour that all across the top of your sandwiches. This is what gives your sandwiches a little bit of a French toast flavor, and this is in lieu of frying it. So a traditional Monte Cristo sandwich is a fried sandwich. You dip it in something similar to a pancake batter, and then you fry it, and it's absolutely delicious. So this gives us the same idea without dipping it and frying it. So make sure that it's covering your entire sandwiches. Make sure that every inch of the tops are covered. So I'm just spreading it across the top. And this is going to be absolutely delicious when you eat it. You're probably thinking this looks bananas, but I promise you it's delicious. Once you have it completely spread out all the way across your sandwiches, you're going to grab some tin foil and you're going to loosely cover your sandwiches. This is going to allow the insides to bake evenly. We're going to bake it like this, and then at the end, we're going to take it out and take the tin foil off and bake it for a little bit longer. So pop it into a oven that's been set at 350 degrees for about 15 minutes, and then we'll come back to it. Next up, we're going to make our queso dip. We're starting with a block of Velveeta cheese. This, I believe, is a 15-ounce block of Velveeta cheese. Go ahead and get it open and into your saucepan. Have your heat on about medium heat, and then you're going to add in 1 can of Hormel chili with no beans. This is going to be the base of your queso dip, and it's absolutely delicious. It does have really great flavor, and again, no beans. Make sure you grab the one with no beans. You could probably do it with the one with beans, but we prefer the no beans. I just think it is a better flavor for this dip. Go ahead and mix those together, and you're going to want to let your cheese melt, and you don't want it to sit too still so that you don't fry your cheese. Make sure you're using a non-stick skillet so that way nothing is sticking to the bottom, and just keep moving it around until your cheese has melted. Next to it, you'll see another skillet there. I am cooking up some bacon in there. That is for our tachos. So I've let this kind of sit a little bit. As you see, the cheese is starting to melt. That's what you want it to look like, and just keep stirring so that everything is coming together as the cheese melts. And then we're going to add in the seasonings here in just a little bit. While that is coming together, we're going to go ahead and check on our sandwiches. I had taken off the cover to these sandwiches a little bit ago, and here they are all finished. So you cook them for 15 minutes with the tin foil on, 10 minutes without it, and they come out absolutely delicious. Now we're coming back to our dip, and we're adding in 1 cup of milk. For this, I'm using whole milk, and you're just going to stir that in until it's completely blended. It might seem like it's going to be a little bit too watery, but the Velveeta does stiffen back up as it cools. So you definitely want to make sure that you have a good amount of fluid in your dip so that it doesn't get too stiff. So just stir this around until it is combined. It will combine, it just takes a little bit. And then we're going to season it up. We're going to start with chili powder. You need 2 teaspoons of chili powder in your dip. Next up, we're going to add in paprika. Again, another 2 teaspoons of paprika for your dip. And then the final seasoning that you're going to add is cumin. So for the cumin, you'll only need about a half a teaspoon. So toss in what you feel like you need. If you like it a little smokier, you can add a touch more, but this really is the perfect recipe. You're not going to need to salt or pepper it because it definitely has enough of that already. So just stir it until it's combined, and then you can lower down your heat and keep it warm until you're ready to serve. You could also serve this in a crock pot to keep it warm. Now we're going to work on our tachos. So I've had my cheese out, and we're going to grate about 1 whole 8-ounce package of cheese and another half of a package, maybe even a whole. I think I could have used a little bit more, but typically I think 2 packages of cheese would be appropriate. So just shredding the cheese and then adding that shredded cheese to the top of the tachos. They are nice and warm. I had just taken them out of the oven, and we're going to pop them back in once we have all of the cheese evenly spread across the top. So again, this is something you can use whatever kind of cheese you prefer. I'm using the aged sharp cheddar, the Vermont sharp cheddar from Cabot. That's what I like to use. That's what I always use. And now we're going to chop up our bacon. So I had cooked an entire package of bacon, and I had to taste it to make sure that it was okay. And you're going to go ahead and chop that up into little bite-sized pieces, and then we're going to sprinkle that across the top of our tachos. You want it to be nice and even and easy to eat, so make sure that you cut them into small bite-sized pieces and then sprinkle those across the top. And again, you're going to pop this back into your oven. I have it set at 350, and I left it in for probably another 5 to 7 minutes to let everything warm up and melt. Now I'm going to plate our dip while that's waiting. And I got this really beautiful tray here from Walmart along with that beautiful bowl. Both are from Walmart. I think both are from Better Homes and Gardens. And I'm using the lightly salted on the border chips. These are absolutely delicious. They're crispy and buttery and perfect. While our tater tots are finishing up, we're going to go ahead and make our topping. You're going to use about 4 to 6 ounces of sour cream, and we're going to add in ranch. You want to add in a pretty good amount, about the same as 1 whole package of ranch seasoning. It's up to you how much you like. Because I have it in a different dispenser than a package, I just kind of do it to taste. I eyeball it, taste it, see if that's what I like. And then we're going to set that to the side. We're also going to dice up some green onion. Don't skip this part. This part gives it a really delicious final flavor, brings it all together, gives it something fresh and a little bit of a crispy bite when you eat your tachos. I've now taken out our tachos from the oven, and I've added them to this platter. This platter is actually from Hobby Lobby. I found it in their fall section. And we're going to go ahead and add our sour cream to the top. Just kind of spread it out, and then you can use your spatula, or like here I'm using a wooden knife, and you can just kind of spread it out across your tater tots, and it will, with the heat of the tater tots, it will just kind of melt into everything and be absolutely delicious. You could also have a little bit on the side for people to dip if they like a little bit more of the sour cream. Once you have that fully spread out across your tater tots, you're going to sprinkle on your scallions or your green onions. Again, don't skip this part. It does add a really delicious fresh flavor at the end. And again, you could have some to the side for people to put more if they like it, but it is delicious and nobody skips this part in my house. Finally, it's time to plate up our Monte Cristo sandwiches. So I'm just using my knife here to cut them because we hadn't done that before. Make sure you cut all the way through because you have those 2 layers of cheese as well as the ham and the turkey. So you're going to want to make sure that you cut all the way through to the bottom. And then I'm just using a elongated platter. You guys have seen this one in almost every one of my videos. I love this platter. It's from Home Goods. And we're going to lay these out and just kind of stack them on top of each other. Final touch for our Monte Cristo sandwiches is a sprinkle of powdered sugar, and typically you would have a bowl with some blackberry preserves or raspberry preserves to dip. However, I had forgotten that piece. We're now going to make our raspberry lemonade margarita. We're starting off with raspberry lemonade. Give it a really good shake, and you're going to put this, as much as you want in your cup, probably, I don't know, close to a cup, I would say. And then I'm adding in 2 ounces of silver tequila. And then I'm also adding in about a half an ounce of triple sec. Once you have that all in your glass, make sure you stir it up really well. You could put this in a shaker if you prefer. Just stir it up really, really well. And then for some garnish, I'm adding in some fresh raspberries, just a few, and our margarita is ready to go.
Okay, my friends, I've got my plate made. I'm ready to dig in. I want to start with the Monte Cristo sandwich. So yummy. Sweet, salty. Normally I would dip this in a blackberry preserves, and I forgot to get it at the grocery store. Make sure you dip yours in it. It takes it over the top. Let's go ahead and try our tachos. So good. I've already been eating about a pound of the dip. Let's take a sip of our margarita. It is pretty strong. If you don't like yours that strong, you can do 1 ounce of tequila, half an ounce of triple sec if this is too strong for you. Finally, we're gonna go ahead and try the banana pudding, even though I already know what it's gonna taste like and how delicious it's gonna be because I make it all the time. So good. The chessman cookie, that's where it's at. Once you make your banana pudding with a chessman cookie, you will never go back. The buttery deliciousness of a chessman cookie just takes it over the top. Okay, my friends, that is it for our Foodie Friday Cook With Me this week. I am excited to go sit down and watch the ball with my family. I hope that you enjoyed these recipes. I'll have them all linked for you down below. The ones that I have a recipe for, the other ones like the tachos, Those I just kind of wing it. So I'll have that recipe for you down in the description box. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear them. If you try any of these recipes, tag me on Instagram or let me know here on YouTube. And until the next one, my friends, happy eating.